Debbie Good, and welcome to Good Studio.
So here we are. This is where I am currently at, and this will be our last video unless something drastic happens and changes my mind. We're almost there. Now, I will tell you, I have added a ton of layers back over top using the Powerwax and the palette colors that we have been using. I have out on my palette right now currently, excuse me, Burnt Umber, Ultramarine Blue, Raw Sienna, yes, Raw Sienna and White. I decided at some point that I needed a little bit of some sunshine colors, and if you'll note here, and a little around the eye and a little down here in the ear, I added, that's where the Raw Sienna was added. I added a little bit of white with it to brighten it up a little bit, and then of course added the wax to start scraping over the textures. So key thing when you're building your layers, if you are experimenting along with me, you know, put a couple of layers on and walk away. Come back, reassess, and then add more layers as you need to. If you let those layers dry in between, you'll get a lot neater texture, whereas if you don't let it dry, it tends to just mush one layer on top of the other, and you lose that texture. And that's something that I found out. The other thing I found out is you really have to be careful when you're applying your wrinkles, and I'm going to demonstrate that. That's what this is all about. Because with all of the texture that we have, we really don't need a lot of definition, I don't believe. Less is better. And as far as the ear goes, I know I talked about doing some stenciling over there, but again, this is busy. This is really busy, and I just don't think we need that element. So I'm actually pretty happy with the way the ear is. I might tone a few areas down with some type of a wash of color, and I may go into some of what I perceive as negative space to pop some other things forward, but that's pretty much going to be it. And that's basically what I'm going to be doing over here now, is working in what I consider to be the negative space to pop these little pillows forward. But again, I'm trying really hard not to get crazy, because I experimented with that and I found it was too much. So do a little bit, take a break, get up, walk away, have a looky-loo, and then go back. And I think you'll find it works out much better. So how am I doing these little pillows? Well, I'm taking a small brush. This happens to be a 0 round, because you really need to get into some little tiny areas. You want to kind of think about organic shapes, and you want to utilize your texture. You don't necessarily need to be following your reference photo exactly at this point. Again, use it as a reference, refer to it to make sure this is indeed looking like an elephant, making this more rounded. But if you get really detailed and start lining up your little squares, he's not going to read. He's going to look strange. So try to follow what's naturally happening on your elephant, because obviously every elephant's wrinkles are different and unique to that elephant. So I'm going to take my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to take my burnt umber, and I'm going to try to get kind of a charcoal tone here, almost a black. It does need to be dark, but you may find in some areas that you need to add just a touch of white, that you need to lighten it up a little bit. It just kind of depends, again, on what your layers are like and what you need to make something pop forward. What else? Let's see. Oh, we're going to have to put some eyelashes in, and I'll do that here in just a minute. And when I'm all done, I'm probably going to bring the value up around the eye to get that eye to pop a little bit more. So again, refer back to your photo, look at the values and the shapes, and try to get some of that going on over here. But by all means, follow your roadmap. that you create and that you've built. So I know up in here, there's some folds. And also notice that I'm trying not just to do lines. I'm skipping around a little bit and making my lines irregular and a little wiggly. And if I think something's too dark, I can always blot with my finger, and that will set it back. So again, I'm just kind of looking for some negative spaces where I can have a little fun. And we've got these lines up here on the forehead. So like here's a good little area. Now it looks way too dark for that area. So I blotted I'm just going to soften that with my finger a little bit. And try to keep your shapes organic looking and not perfect little rectangles. And your lines need to be thick and thin. Again, kind of goes along with that organic style. And bounce around. I have found if you stay in one area too long, that's really when it's easy to set up those perfect little pillows, we'll call them. You get all these perfect little pillows and you think, oh my goodness, when you get back, they become quite evident. And you can see I'm just adding suggestions. I'm probably not going to do hardly anything in here because I like what's happening there. And I've given the eye enough information that I shouldn't have to. But I am going to come over here, I think, and try to give a few more suggestions of those little pillows. Let's see, and I've got some down here that I did that I'm not happy with. They need to be a little more organic, a little more rounded and messed up, so I'm just kind of touching those up a tad. And that is the other cool thing. If you do something you don't like, put another layer of wax over top. It's pretty easy. I've already been working around in here and added some of these little lines to pull out these little pillows. The eye has a lot going on, so that takes a little bit of time. And I probably added more over there because it is the eye area. And I really want to make sure that I get that pulled out. Then I will over here. So this is just, you know, burnt umber again, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and water. I'm not even using my matte medium. I'm not having any problem with the paint sticking. But by all means, if you have issues, then get out the matte medium because that will help it adhere to the wax. Make sure I get that feeling of that roundness right there. So I'm going to take my time and just pull a few of those. But see there, I mean, that's quite a busy area, but just a few lines and you get the sense of what's happening there. Kind of breaking up that line seemed a little, those lines there just seemed a little too perfect. So I just go back with a little bit darker value and add some twists and turns. So hopefully you're getting the general idea. It really is all about, you remember when you were a kid and you laid out in the grass and you looked up at the sky and you saw all the animals, the different shapes, and basically your eye just kind of connects those dots. So that's what you're doing here. You're going to find all the shapes that you've made by the layers of wax. And bringing some of those out. To develop those wrinkles. I've really enjoyed this elephant. I hope you have too, and I'm stoked now to do the bigger one. I've learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but that's how you learn. He's just so doggone interesting with the things that happen with that wax. I'm just really impressed with it. It's a lot of fun. So some of these that I find that go all the way across that really help with that feeling of roundness, I just want to make sure I pull those in, I pull those forward, because that really helps with the trunk. Let's see if I can find another one in here somewhere. So those are a little more substantial and usually quite a bit darker. I'm probably going to stop there just because I think I need to live with it for a little while. I do not want to, like I said, overdo this. I am going to come up here, I think, and just pull out a few. You know, if you see any huge areas that don't have enough definition, that start to look flat, then by all means, you can go in and add a few. Now over here, I don't know that I'm going to do anything over here. I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. Obviously, you're not doing the little pillows. That's not what the elephant ear is. A lot flatter, thinner piece of skin. It doesn't have all of those little fat pillows, I'll call them. But, you know, if you wanted to bring out and make some more interesting shapes by coming in here and finding some of those negative spaces, you could do that. But I'm really happy with what I've got going on there, so I am going to refrain from that. You do want to make sure that you have a nice separation for, you know, here's this dark area that separates this part of the trunk from that dark, deep crevice there. And that line there is really necessary because that's where the ear starts. It's that little flap of skin that's curled back on itself and is catching the light. And that helps to separate the ear from the body of the elephant here. And you want to make sure you've got some nice darks kind of along and through here. The same thing. You want this to pop forward. We want that to go back a little bit. So other than that, and the eyelashes. So the eyelashes are kind of a soft blue. So I'm going to go into my ultramarine blue and my white. I don't know if that needs to be, we'll see how that value works, but I'm also going to get, well, hopefully I'm going to find my liner brush. Here's one. This is a good one. Good enough anyway. And you want this to be ink consistency. And again, I just added water. You can certainly do your matte medium. And when we come in here, those guys are just kind of flicking out from the eye. Right in here. May want to make those a little brighter. I'm going to add a little more white. It's Lucy's lunchtime, so I apologize in advance. You're going to hear some noises. Ooh, I may have went a little too much water. There we go. I have really long eyelashes. I have no idea why. And then you'll also have some coming from this top lid. Don't get too carried away because you don't need to. Just a suggestion. And then this is one of those places where I've still got a little bit of blue in my brush, but it's definitely, as you can see, very light in color. And I just want to pop out this bottom lid a little bit and put a little bit of a glint over here as well. And maybe highlight some of these lashes right in here. All right, so I'm pretty happy with what I have done, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to give it 24 hours. Then I will come back, have another hard look, see if there's anything that I think I need to do to this guy. At that point, when I know I'm done, I'll sign my name and I will videotape how I finish these edges and what we put on top to protect our work. So I will see you next time. Roughly 24 hours later, and here we are. Is he perfect? Well, do we ever create perfection? I think not. But he's close enough. I'm happy enough that I am going to stop here. After all, this was not meant to be my life's work. This was merely an experiment with texture and the Powerwax from PowerTex. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I think I might have overworked him just a little bit. But as I said, this was an experiment just to see how far I could take it, how far I could push it. Overall, it's not bad. So, as I stated earlier, I'm going to show you how I would finish this guy up. All right, so I'm trying to give you a view of an edge here. And what I usually do is take my palette knife and I scrape off any excess wax that might be there. And then you can also take, this happens to be a 220 sanding pad. I really like these guys because they're so pliable. And you can sand this until it's smooth. All right, till it feels nice and smooth to the touch. After you do that, you can then take your, what I like to use is my matte medium. Here it is. All right, once you have this sanded smooth, you can then take some fluid matte medium by Golden is what I use, and go all around all the edges. And then once that's dry, I come back again and lightly sand and wipe it down, and then you're ready to apply whatever color you would like to coordinate with your painting. 9 times out of 10, I do 2 coats of black, and that's how I finish my edges, okay? Now, as to the front, I'm going to go ahead and take a light coat of the Powerwax, obviously without any tint to it, without any paint in it, all over the whole front of the painting, and let that dry probably 48 hours, and then you can come back and buff it out with a soft cloth, and you'll get a somewhat matte, pretty matte sheen to it. So here is how I apply that thin layer of wax. I just take my PowerTex Powerwax here, and I like to use a cotton cloth. You know, you could use, I was going to say you could use an old diaper, but we don't usually have too many of those lying around. But anyway, any type of a soft cloth will work. And I just, you know, put it around my fingers like this, and I dip a little bit and get a little bit onto the cloth. And then I just kind of use a circular motion and spread that around. And just keep adding until I get a thin layer spread all over this guy. And you don't want to press too hard or rub too hard. That's unnecessary. And then once you have the whole thing covered, then you just want to let it dry for, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours. And then you can go back with that same soft cloth and again, just work in a circular motion and buff it out. And that's how I do. And you can apply that to the sides, to those finished sides. Once you have them painted, I put wax on there and buff those out as well. and then your painting is sealed and ready to go. Well, here I am at the end of my journey, and quite a journey it was. I learned a lot. I hope you might have learned a few things too. If not, maybe at least got a couple of chuckles out of it, because it was pretty funny at times. I really enjoy what I do, and I really love sharing it with you all. So if you did like what you saw, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along with more of my tutorials and experiments, then please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single episode. Until then, have a great day, and please keep painting. Life's too short not to have fun, right?